future value. So I wanted us to start off and just talk about the basics, because this has the potential to become a lot more confusing than what it is. But I think it's just important that we get the basics correct. And if the basics are right, then everything else after that should hopefully be fine as well. Okay, so your future value formula is F equals X bracket 1 plus I to the n minus 1 over I. Okay, where X is your installment. So this is the amount of money that is paid every single month. So it's also known as an installment. Okay, so all right, I is your interest rate, N is the number of payments made, and F or FV represents the future value. Okay, so now the difference between future value and compound interest is that with future value, there is an installment being paid on a regular basis. Okay, so that's how you're going to differentiate between the two. Okay, so if they give you a question and you're not sure what formula to use, you say to yourself, is there a payment or an installment being made on a regular basis? If the answer is no, then you would use compound interest where something is growing, right? If the answer is yes, then we'd use future value, okay, where something is growing. Now, when I say where something is growing, future value is used when we want to calculate savings. All right, so it's used for savings and investments. Right, where a person or people are putting money into an account every single month. Okay, that would be the idea behind the concept. Okay, so X represents the installment, F is the future value, N is the number of payments made. Now, this is going to be different from what we've been working with compound interest, because there, N represents the number of times that the interest is compounded in a particular period. Here, N represents the number of payments that are made. Okay, and there's often a mark for working out what N is, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, and that's one of the things that I was hoping we would at least have a little bit of a discussion about this lesson. Okay, so first question, let's just make this a little bit smaller so that it all fits onto the page. There we go. Suppose 1,500 Rand is invested every month, starting immediately, for a period of 12 months. Interest is 18% per annum compounded monthly. The future value of the investment after 12 months would be the sum of all the payments together that had been earned. All right, so what we would do is we would use our future value formula. We can do it as a geometric sum, but it's much, much quicker and much easier to use the formula. So that would be the expectation for you as well. All right. So if they ask you to calculate the future value, all right, the future value, F is equal to, your X in this case is 1,500. Okay, interest 1 plus 0,18. Compounded monthly would be to the power of 12, close brackets. And now here, N would have to be, all right, the number of payments that were made. Okay, so if it's going to be for a period of 12 months, okay, then the value of your N, but they have said here, is that it's starting immediately. All right, so when they say that something has started immediately, they are implying that there is an extra payment. So we need to be careful about that. So in other words, there's going to be one payment of 1,500 Rand at the end of every month for 12 months. Plus, because they have said we have started immediately, it means that there would be 13 payments in this particular situation. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so sometimes there is an immediate payment, sometimes there isn't. You've just got to be very careful of the language that's used. All right, and then of course you would just go ahead, pop that into your calculator, and you would work out the answer. So that's really, really the most sort of straightforward way in which we can use the future value formula. Let's just work this out, and then we can all make sure we're getting the same thing. Don't forget to close. If you open a bracket, don't forget to close it, because if you open two brackets and you don't close two brackets, your calculator will tell you that there is a syntax error, and that's bound to get you spinning, especially if you're writing a test or an exam. Okay, so make sure if you open a bracket that you close your brackets again afterwards. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I am getting an investment of 21,355 Rand and 24 cents. Yeah, me too. Cool, Leroy. Okay, so super easy. Okay, good stuff, everybody. Okay, now I want to just talk a little bit further about this word immediately, all right? And in this particular case here, what I want us to do is I want us to disregard this sentence, okay? So what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to disregard it, and then I'm going to include it, and I'm going to show you the difference between the two, okay? So if we take this out, so in other words, this sentence is not included. All right, and let's just pretend it starts here where it says at. Okay, so Thomas starts saving money into a unit trust fund. Okay, so now you read starts saving money. Okay, so the minute that he starts saving money, you're thinking to yourself, okay, this must be a future value because money is being saved. If he's depositing money on a regular basis and it's the same amount of money, then it's definitely a future value problem. Okay, and we can see that it is because it says at the end of each month, he deposits 800 Rand into the fund and continues to do this for 10 years. Interest is 8% per annum compounded monthly. Calculate the future value of his investment at the end of the 10-year period. Okay, so it's just straightforward subbing into future value. Do you guys want to go ahead and do that? And then you can share your answer in the chat, and then I'm going to take the purple writing away, and then we're going to talk about what changed. Okay. Wow, Hayden, that was super quick. Well done. Good job. Okay, so I want to know from you guys, what are you using as the value of N? Because I have removed the sentence that says he immediately deposits 800 Rand into the fund, and we're only considering at the end of each month, what is my exponent going to be in this case, my value of N? Okay. All right, Kulani, I agree. Taniko, good.
Ma'am, is your N 120?
It's 120 in this case, Oratil, we're correct. Okay, because he is making the deposit at the end of every single month for a period of 10 years. So 12 times 10 is 120. Good. All right, lovely. Okay, 0.08 over 12. And when you pop that into your calculator, I think that you will get the answer that most of you have put up on the screen in the chat. Let's just double check. Don't forget with 8%, it's 0.08. A lot of people end up going there, wrong there as well. Okay, what are you guys getting as an answer? Let's see what you've got in the chat. That's it. Okay, quite right. Okay, so you should all be getting 146,356 Rand and 83 cents. Good job. Well done, everybody. That's lovely. Okay, so that's future value that we're calculating. Correct, Kulani. Okay, it is. So I just want to answer a question in the chat. Okay, now what I want us to do is I want us to consider what happens when we include this sentence, okay? So in other words, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rub this out. How would he immediately deposits 800 Rand into the fund and thereafter at the end of each month, how does that change what we have in purple? What's going to change here? Okay. Exactly. So we're going to +1 precisely. Okay, so it's going to affect our N value. That's 100%. Okay, because there is an extra payment. All right, made at the beginning. All right, so what we would do here is, in this case, it would have been A equals 800, exactly the same thing. Only our interest, sorry, not our interest, our N is going to change to 121. Okay, and then that would obviously affect our answer. Okay, we would get a different answer. So just be very, very careful about whether or not they imply that there is an immediate deposit. I know that the Mind Action Series textbook is a little bit naughty like that, where they're always implying that there's this immediate payment and then one later on, and then you end up thinking that that's always the case, but that's in fact not true. Okay, so in this case here, we would get 148,132,54. All right, so I think everybody's feeling pretty good about calculating future value. Let's go on and have a look at how they can change the situation for us a little bit. Yeah, give us an emoji to let's see how we're all feeling so far. No hope. No, it would be part of the future value calculation. It would be seen as a... I wonder if you get the same answer. Yeah, 1 month, mind you, maybe you could. Maybe if you used 120 and then you used, because I mean, it would be that amount plus 1 month's worth of interest. You should get the same answer, Hope. I mean, it's extra work. You wouldn't want to do it that way, but you should get the same answer. Okay, good stuff. All right, I'm glad everybody's feeling good. Let's have a look at the situation over here. All right, so now Jessie deposits 400 Rand into an account paying 14% per annum, compounded half yearly. 6 months later, she deposits 400 Rand into the account. 6 months after this, she deposits another 400 Rand into the account, and then she continues to make half yearly deposits of 400 Rand into the account for a period of 9 years from her first deposit. Calculate the value of her savings at the end of the savings period. So I chose this question specifically because it's compounded differently and she's making deposits every 6 months rather than every month. Okay, so that's what's different here. There's not a monthly deposit. There is a half yearly deposit of 400 Rand that's going into the account. Remember, N represents the number of payments that are going to be made. Okay, so it's not necessarily months. It depends on the question. All right, so we read this, we see that there's the same amount of money, an installment that's being paid. It's a savings, so that means we use future value. They're asking us to calculate the value of our savings at the end, so that means future value is what we want. Our installment, X, is 400. Our interest rate in this case is 14%, so 0.14. And because it's compounded half yearly, what do we need to divide the 0.14 by? Okay, by 2. All right. Now, Tyler, I'm very glad you said 6. Okay, because then this is going to be really hopeful, really useful for you today. Okay, when it's half, I know it's every 6 months, and this is the mistake that a lot of matric students make with this particular question. All right, it's half a year every 6 months. All right, so you have to divide by 2 because there are 2 half years in a year. Okay. Close that. Now we need to work out the value of N. All right, so remember, this person deposits the money into the account twice a year for 9 years. Okay, so N is going to be equal to 2 times 9. Are we going to add 1 in this case? From the language of the question, are they implying that there is an immediate payment? What do you guys think? Are we going to add that 1 or are we not going to add the 1 in this case? I'm just moving. Okay, so a lot of you have said we're not going to add the 1, but unfortunately that's not correct. We are going to add the 1 in this case. All right, so just really got to read so carefully. Jessie deposits 400 Rand into an account paying 14% per annum, compounded half yearly. That is an immediate payment. 6 months later, she deposits 400 Rand into the account. 6 months after this, she deposits another 400 Rand into the account. She then continues to make half-yearly deposits of 400 Rand into the account for a period of 9 years from her first deposit of 400 Rand. Okay, so what they are doing here is that they are implying very badly, that there is an extra payment in this particular case. All right, so in other words, there are going to be 19 payments of 400 Rand. Okay, so yes, we are going to have to add 1 in this case. All right, so that will be to the power of 19 minus 1 all over 2. Okay, now you can calculate our future value or Jessie's future value. Yes, I agree. Yeah. Do you know what? You know what I would say for this particular question? I'm just reading it again. I think that this is actually a really bad example. So I think you could interpret it both ways. I think that n could be equal to 19, but I think you could also argue that n would be equal to 18, because it says here that she continues to make half-yearly deposits of 400 Rand into the account for a period of 9 years from her first deposit of 400 Rand. But they are, this beginning sentence here, where they're saying that she's deposited this money into account, that is the way that they are trying to imply that she's made an immediate deposit. Okay, and then from here, 6 months later she deposits, and then 6 months she deposits, and so they are implying that there is an extra payment here. But I think that if this was a question in a test, I think that they would have to mark 19 correct, and I think they would have to mark 18 correct. Okay. Yeah, we've got to be so careful with financial maths. And that's why your exam papers go through the moderation process that they do to make sure that things cannot be misunderstood in more than one way. All right, let's have a look at this one over here. Okay, so John deposits 500 Rand into his savings account. At the end of each month thereafter, he deposits 500 Rand into the account and continues to do this for 6 years. Do you think there's an immediate payment here? Is there an extra payment in this case? Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Okay, because he deposits the 500 Rand and then they say at the end of each month thereafter, he deposits 500 Rand into the account and continues to do this for 6 years. All right, so I think here, calculating the future value of his investment is going to be something that is actually quite easy for us to do. Do you guys want to go ahead and go and do that quickly? And then we can move on to the next thing. Yeah, and just be careful with a 7% compounded monthly. Okay, so 0,07. All right, and now here again, we need to work out what N is. So he is investing it monthly for a period of 6 years. And then there's that initial 500 Rand that goes in. So this would be 73 in this case. You can share your answer with us. Okay, what are you guys getting as an answer? There we go. Lovely. Well done. All right, that's really nice. Good job. Well done, everybody. So 45340 and 52 cents. Good job. Okay, so are we feeling confident when it comes to just calculating straightforward future value now? It's really just a case of subbing into the formula and then letting the calculator do the rest. I just also want to point out to you, sorry, let me just answer, you can answer that question and then I can carry on talking. Are we all feeling okay? Good. Nice. In financial maths, well, with not just financial maths, but in a lot of sections in maths where we are using a formula to substitute into, it's very important that we select the correct formula. So in financial maths, if you choose the wrong formula, you will be given no marks. Even if you substituted correctly into the wrong formula, you're not going to get any marks at all. So it's very important that you identify the correct formula to use first of all, and that's the way it gets marked. So it would be marked, have you subbed into the correct formula? That would be your first mark. There is often a mark for N, especially if it's a situation like this where we've had to work out what it is, and then there would be a mark for the answer. Okay, so I just wanted to go through that with you, and then here, so let's say you made a mistake and let's say you only thought that this was 72. What would end up happening is that you would lose that mark, but if you substituted correctly here, you would still get this mark. And then what they do on this mark over here is they call this a continuous accuracy. So if you carried your 72 correctly through to your answer, you would still end up with 2 out of 3 instead of just 1 out of 3. Okay, and that's the way I'm sure your trials papers will be marked as well. I'm sure your teachers mark like that already if they're teaching matric. Okay, but that's the way that it's done. So at least you don't end up losing too much. Okay, this was another sort of fairly straightforward one. I wanted to do one. Was it? Okay, there we go. So I wanted to talk about this one, all right, which is just a little bit more difficult. Okay, unless, I don't know, do you feel that you need some more practice with the basics? How do we feel? Basics or sort of more difficult? You can just pop it into the chat. What do you... Yeah, ready to move on. Okay, cool. Okay, all right, that's fine. So let's have a look at the situation over here. All right, so they tell us that Dana has just turned 20 and has a dream of saving 8 million Rand by the time she reaches the age of 50. She starts to pay equal monthly payments or amounts into a retirement annuity, which pays 18% per annum compounded monthly. Her first payment starts on her 20th birthday, and her last payment is made on her 50th birthday. How much will she pay each month? Okay, so again, we've got to read all the information and decide what formula we're going to use. Now, a way that you can represent this sort of information for yourselves, matrix, is to use a timeline, all right? So I just want to show you how we would use something like that with respect to a question like this one, okay? So, on her 20th birthday, so that would literally be at T0. This is her 20th birthday. And then we've got, so T1, T2, T3, and so it goes all the way down here until we get to T, it's her 50th birthday, so that would be 358, 359, T360. Okay, so 360 months later, on her 50th birthday, she wants to have 8 million Rand. Okay, we do not know how much money she is depositing every single month. So we can say, let's just call that X. All right, so she starts on her 20th birthday, and her last payment is made on her 50th birthday. So that means that X is deposited here, and it's deposited there, and there, and there, and every single month, including when she turns 50 as well. Our interest rate from start to finish, sorry, and this is her 50th birthday over here, and our interest rate from start to finish is 0.18% compounded monthly. All right, so I think even though you don't get any marks for setting out a timeline like this, I think it's a nice thing to have because it at least allows you a way of being able to visually represent what it is that you need to write. Okay, so now we need to calculate her monthly repayment. All right, so in other words, they want us to calculate the value of X in the future value formula. Okay, so it's a retirement annuity. That means that she's saving money every single month. It's the same amount of money. So that's why we would be using the future value formula in this case. Where are we going to put the 8 million? Where are we going to put the 8 million? Exactly, in place of our future value. Quite right. Okay, so let's go and put it there. X is our installment. We don't know what that is. Our interest rate is 18% per annum compounded monthly. Okay. And now we need to work out, all right, how many payments has she made? So what is the value of N going to be in this case? Do you guys think? Okay, so it's interesting to see because some of you have said 360 and some of you have said 361. And in fact, those of you that are saying 361 are correct. Okay, because remember she makes her first payment on her 20th birthday at T0. Okay, and she makes her last payment on her 50th birthday. All right, so that is going to be 360 plus 1. Okay, so in other words, 30 times 12 plus 1. All right, so it is 361 in this case. Well done. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And now over 12. Right. Now we are going to have to rearrange, okay, in order to be able to solve for X. Okay, so now what you are doing here, all right, is you are cross multiplying and then dividing by the square bracket. All right, so when I say cross multiplying, you are multiplying the, let me just get a different color here. You are multiplying the denominator with that and then dividing by the bracket. So in other words, when X is the subject of the formula, it's equal to 8 million times 0,18 over 12 divided by the value inside the square bracket. Okay. All right. What are you getting? Kay's has got an answer. Are you getting 558 Rand and 41 cents? That is correct. Indeed, well done. Okay, good job. All right, so now everybody sits, you see we've all put the correct answer down there. That's fine. What I'm going to do is just give me 1 second. And I'm just going to find another question that I can give you guys. Here we go. Okay. All right, so now we're going to practice this. Here you go. You guys try this one. Okay, so Kaiser, you've got an answer here. Anyone else got an answer yet? You're still busy? Okay, nice. Okay, so Tanika, you got a slightly different answer. Johannes, you got a slightly different answer. Okay, so I'm going to start working through it. And then we can just figure out who's wrong and who's right. Okay, so it's 400,000 Rand is the future value. All right, she wants to start making payments into an account. So we have to calculate X, how much she needs to pay. 1 plus 12% per annum compounded monthly, so that's 0.12 over 12. But now here it says starting immediately. All right, so there again, it's this implication that there's this extra payment that is going to take place. How much will she pay each month? How long is she doing this for? For 5 years. Okay, so I would say that N is equal to 5 times 12 plus 1. I would use 61. as my N value. Okay. All right, no worries. Okay, not the end of the world. Okay, so then again, you would have had to cross multiply. So that would have given us our 400,000 multiplied by 0.12 over 12 divided by our square bracket. We actually don't have to show the step that I'm busy writing at the moment, where you're making X the subject of the formula. You don't actually have to show this step, this one here. Okay, you can go straight to the answer. Let's just move that one down. You can go straight to the answer. All right, so here there would have been definitely a mark for subbing into the correct formula, mark on that, probably a mark for simplifying, and then obviously there would be a mark on the answer. Okay, so are you guys getting 4,791 Rand and 20 cents? Good. Lovely. Well done. Okay. Nice. All right. So how will we know, Boyd Sherpa? There has to be some kind of implication. Often what they do is that they tell you that there's an immediate payment, and then the person continues to make these payments at the end of every single month for a period of time. That's how you would know. But it can be quite difficult to pick up. But here it's because it said starting immediately. That's how we know that there was an extra payment in this case. Okay, all right, well, let's have a look at yet another situation, because I mean, there's so many different things that we can do. All right, so let's just have a look at this. All right, so in order to supplement his state pension after retirement, a school teacher aged 30 takes out a retirement annuity. So the minute you see takes out a retirement annuity, we immediately start thinking future value, because he's saving money and it's the same amount of money every single month. Okay, so it's a savings or an investment. So he makes monthly payments of 1,000 Rand into the fund, and the payments start immediately. Okay, hint, hint, hint. The payments are made in advance, which means that the last payment of 1,000 Rand is made 1 month before the annuity pays out. The interest rate for the annuity is 12% per annum, compounded monthly. Calculate the future value of the annuity in 25 years' time. Okay, so here the payments are made in advance. Okay, they're not being made at the end of the month like they normally would be. So what they want us to do now is they want us to calculate his future value of this annuity in 25 years' time. Okay, so let's have a look at what it is that we need to do. Again, if you want to draw a timeline to help you represent the information visually first, I think that that's fine. Let me just show you that very quickly. All right, so let's use that color. Okay, so at T0, they're implying, so the payments start immediately. So there's an immediate payment of 1,000 Rand, right? And then he continues to make payments of 1,000 Rand, T2, 1,000 Rand, it's supposed to be a 0, etc., etc. Right? And here he goes all the way 25 years into the future. So just before he retires, that would be his 299th payment of 1,000 Rand, and it stops there. Okay, so T300, because his last payment was made 1 month before the annuity pays out. So that's why his last payment is here at T299. All right, so the money is sitting in the account for a month, earning interest. Okay, so is everybody happy with the timeline? Our interest rate in this case, 0.12 divided by 12. Okay, now let's go ahead and work out the future value of his annuity. Okay, so he is paying in 1,000 Rand every single month. 1 plus 0.12 over 12. Now here, we've got to be super, super, super careful, because when we first read this, Bocello, do you want to ask a question? Okay. All right. So when we first read this, we see there that the payment starts immediately. But then when we continue reading it, we see that the last payment of 1,000 Rand is made 1 month before the annuity pays out. Okay.
Oh, ma'am, Boyshelo wanted to find out if you can repeat the part about the timeline.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to just go through the timeline again? Okay. All right. So Bocello, what I was saying here is that this particular teacher, all right, starts making payments immediately. So that means that there is a payment made at T0. That's why I've written this over here. Let me just, oh, that's a bit of a dark color. Hang on, let's just see if we can get something that's a little bit lighter. Okay, so over here at T0, okay, that's why, because the payments start immediately. All right, so he's made a payment at T0. Okay, so we would immediately start thinking, okay, well, there's one extra payment in this case, but there isn't. This is where it starts to become a little bit trickier. Okay, so the payments are made in advance. So he makes them at the beginning of the month and not at the end. Okay, remember in all the previous examples, the people have been paying at the end of the month. Here, he's paying at the beginning of the month. So he pays and then he earns a month's interest on that. And then he pays and then he earns a month's interest on that. Okay, but his last payment is made 1 month before the annuity pays out. So in other words, he is going to make 300 payments. But because he starts immediately at T0, his last payment of 1,000 Rand happens at T299. He has made 300 payments. And then because it's going to be paid out 1 month later, it means that it is sitting in the account earning interest for a month. Okay, so here it's earning interest for 1 month before his retirement annuity pays out. That's what I was trying to get to. Okay, so what we would have here, Bocello and everybody else, is there are 300 payments that have been made. Okay, minus 1. Okay, all over our interest rate of 0.12 over 12. Now, to account for the fact that the money has stayed in the account and earned interest, right, we are now going to use compound interest. So that has to grow using compound interest for 1 month. The accumulated amount is then going to grow for 1 month, okay, at the same interest rate. All right, so in other words, 1 plus 0.12 over 12 for 1 month. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Yes, Kulani, this question is tricky. It is. That's why we've got to be so, in the beginning, it's really, really easy, and then it gets very difficult very fast. Okay, so this gentleman is going to end up with a nice fat pension of 1,897,635 Rand and 9 cents is what I get. Yes. Okay. So Solomon, I see you've got a bit of a sad face. Kulani, I think you were also struggling with that a little bit. Do you want me to go through it one more time? I genuinely do not mind. Yeah, this needs more time. Oh, okay, Leroy, you're also crying at this point. Okay, I'm so sorry. That's certainly not what I wanted. Okay, and Bocello is also crying. Okay. So, Bavuma, SL Bavuma. So does that extra month of interest come from investing before the annuity comes into effect? Yeah, so before it pays out, it sits in the account and it earns interest for a month. Okay, so let's just go back through this again, because I know from here it starts to become difficult, right? So if we go back and we look at all these previous questions that we were working out, okay, right? The idea here is that all of these deposits that were being made were taking place at the end of the month. Okay, so whatever deposit was taking place, it was happening at the end of the month, right? And then we just had to figure out how many payments of whatever it was we had done. Here, what's different is that the payments are made in advance. So the payments are being made at the beginning of the month and not at the end of the month. So the payment gets made at the beginning of the month and it stays in the account and it earns interest. And then the next payment is made at the beginning of the next month and it stays in the account and it earns interest, all right? When we read that the payments start immediately, that's telling us that there is a payment at T0. Because the payments are made in advance, they're made at the beginning of the month. That means that at T299, all right, there have been 300 payments that have taken place because we're starting to count at T0 and not at 1. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so we start counting at T0. That's why by the time we get to T299, he has made his 300 payments, okay, of 1,000 Rand. But because the payments were made in advance at the beginning of the month, right, his annuity is going to sit in the account, right, and it's going to earn interest for 1 more month before it pays him out. So after the last payment of 1,000 Rand, it doesn't get paid out immediately. It stays in the account and it earns interest for another month before he gets his money. Does that make a little bit more sense to everybody? Sorry, I was just replying to somebody in the chat. Kaiser, you saying, will you lose marks? Yes, so that will give you a different, yeah, it will give you a different answer, Kaiser, absolutely. Okay, so no, no. When we say it's being paid in advance, Kulani, that doesn't mean that it starts at T0. Starting at T0 means that a payment has been made immediately. When we say a payment is made in advance, it means that it's made before it's due, not after it's due. Okay, so for example, if you now have to, if you go and buy something and they say to you, you need to make payments in advance, it means that they need you to pay for it before you've actually used it. Does that make sense? That's what's happening. So the money is being put into the account at the beginning of the month, not at the end of the month, like it was previously. Okay, I'll just let you do the poll and then we can continue with the question. Okay. All right, so payment start immediately means that a payment has been made at T0. If you start paying at T0 and you make 300 payments, you're going to end at T299, okay, because we started counting at 0 instead of starting to count at 1. Okay, once he's made 300 payments of 1,000 Rand, it's going to sit there in his account for another month earning interest. Okay, so that's why here we say that there were 300 payments. So this over here represents the 300 payments of, let me just change that color because I don't like it. There we go. Okay, so here are your 300 payments of 1,000 Rand. Okay, so that is going to accumulate to a future value, right? And then because it stays behind in the account and earns interest, this is now your compound interest, okay, that the money is earning. And because it's in there for just 1 month, it's to the power of 1. Okay, and then we'll pop that into the calculator, and there we go. We would end up with, that is our answer. Okay, we are going to investigate this in more detail in our next lesson, which is going to be future value stepping up. So I'm going to do some more difficult sort of questions with you, like this end one.